Welcome to Power Talks. In today's episode, we are discussing about Nepal's economy. Despite having tremendous potential in agriculture, tourism, and education, Nepal still struggles with poverty and economic turmoil. Let us share some insights on how this beautiful nation can rise with economic growth and become a prosperous nation in Asia. 5 decades ago, the situation that was in Israel with finances, poverty, barren deserts, not much hope in terms of a great livelihood. I think we sense that in Nepal right now. But Israel has come a long way. It's one of the developed countries of the world. The economy is great. There are green pastures everywhere. So considering the growth that we are seeing in Nepal right now, do you see hope for us?
I think Nepal has a great potential. I went to a trek in Dolaka, and when you see the hard-working farmers, no one can tell me stories that Nepalis are lazy. They are willing to work hard. And when you see the courage of the people going to the streets in April 2006, risking their life to bring a change in Nepal, and they're all young people, most of them young people, you cannot say that Nepali are indifferent and they don't care about anything. There's a lot of energy here. The issue is how to channel it in the right directions. And Nepal has a lot of potential, whether it's hydroelectric projects, tourism. You have a paradise here. I hope you all realize it. For tourists, it's really a paradise. You have heritage, you have culture, you have various ethnic groups that are fascinating. You have scenery, one of the most beautiful in the world. You all have it all. And the hospitality, famous Nepali hospitality. So I think that a lot can be done here once you have political stability, once the bans become part of the past. Then I think Nepal will go on the right track, and hopefully by drafting a constitution that will enable a smooth transfer of powers between the political parties through democratic elections.
When we talk about the Israel-Nepal relations, is there any investments coming in to Nepal from Israel, like especially in the telecom sector?
I don't think that the investments are coming at the moment to Nepal in the field of telecom. However, a growing number of Israeli telecom companies are showing greater interest in Israel, and obviously as the Embassy of Israel we welcome it. Because, for a long time we have tried to open the eyes and the minds of Israeli companies to the potential here, especially after the concluding of the peace process, the peace agreement, which open new opportunities here in Nepal. And it seems that the telecom sector is one of them. For example, take the market for cellular phones. You can see when you go in the streets of Kathmandu, every youth holding at least one mobile. It's so much in demand, while in other countries the market has come to a point of almost full saturation. So in this regard, I think Nepal is a great potential, and Israeli companies very much looking to explore this market. After all, you have also market for satellite phones, and Israeli companies are leading in this field. So I hope that there will be a spillover effect to other fields in Israel when the telecom sectors show more interest, that also other companies from different fields will also see the potential that is in Nepal.
Denmark has been one of the leading donor agencies for Nepal's development. And with the current global economic crisis, will we be seeing some cut in the size of support in the future for Nepal?
Well, for the moment the answer is clearly no. We have a country frame of about $40 million, and that will continue
for this year.
For this year, there is a link between our overall development assistance and the Danish GDP. It is 0.8% of the GDP. Some years back it was 1%. The government then lowered it to 0.8%, but they're now talking about increasing it again. So if they increase it back to the 1%, there will be more money. If they don't, there might be a little less, because if the GDP goes down, there will be less if we take 0.8% for development assistance. But I don't think anything will hit Nepal in that sense from the Danish side.
You're counted amongst the world's eminent diplomats. Based on your experience and expertise in dealing with other nations in transition, where do you place Nepal's future? Realistically, how optimistic or patient should we be?
That is a hard question, of course. I have been in 2 other countries where there was transition. My previous post as ambassador in Kenya, and then I was in Bangladesh, where in a way you still have a transition. I think all countries have their own unique transition. And if I look at my own country's history, we have had different transitions. Transition takes time. I don't want to be pessimistic, because you will come through it. Of course, Nepal has existed for so many years. So you will come through it. It's merely how long it does take, and can you get through it in a peaceful way. You have had an insurgency for more than 10 years. Many thousand lives have been lost. So the issue here is that all parties, political parties, but also all partners, because it's more than the political parties, it's every Nepali plays a crucial role to make peace and move forward. And the key word is inclusiveness.
When we talk about Sri Lanka and Nepal ties and talk about commerce, Sri Lanka is one of the leading tea exporter to the entire world. Its brand Dilma is loved worldwide. Even I use it once in a while. And Nepal, the eastern part of Nepal, Ilam and its neighboring area, is very rich in producing organic tea. We are good producers in terms of quality, and Sri Lanka is a great exporter. So can there be any strong ties in Sri Lanka importing trees from Nepal and exporting it globally?
Definitely. I think Dilma, they are doing a very good service, exporting tea to various countries in various brands and various tastes and so on. So we have a branch here in Dilma. I think they are doing some promotional activities, so we can get their expertise. At the same time, as you know, Sri Lanka produce about 19% of the export product of tea, so fairly sizable amount. But of course now compete with various other countries like African countries and India, Darjeeling and so on. But still, if you take the taste wise and the quality wise, I think people like the Sri Lankan tea, because tea is famous. Ceylon tea is famous worldwide. That has a brand name. I'm sure that whatever the expertise that you really require in order to promote your tea, I'm sure that Sri Lanka will be in a position to assist. In Dilma itself, perhaps will take some sort of promotional work.
How have you seen the politics and economy interact in Europe?
The European experience has been very pragmatic. We did not start talking about the high politics, but we started talking about what is immediately understood by the citizen, the advancement of the prosperity of the countries, of the regions, of the individuals. So we went through the phase of agreeing first that we want to advance economically, and we did not start talking politics up front, but we left the politics a little follow the economic development. So the overall model was to design common policies that will improve the economy and the economic performance, and that would inevitably drag in, if you want, more consensus on political issues. And overall, we had a system where politics and political consensus has followed the economic consensus of the economic development.
Nepal has failed in its economy due to the decade-long conflict and civil war. But we're still rich in natural resources, and our prospects for agriculture and tourism is very high. Based on the successful model of your country, how do you suggest us that we can best utilize our resources and develop the agricultural and tourism sector?
You are already a very popular destination for German tourists, not only trekkers, but they're also people who are interested in the sort of the cultural sites you have to offer. You have the Nepal Tourism Year coming up in 2011. I think to achieve further growth in the field of tourism, first of all, the peace process should continue and not being hampered by the current political crisis. But I think also the infrastructure has to be improved, which doesn't mean that you need any 5-star hotels up in the mountains, but a certain infrastructure has to be put in place. And you mentioned also the other sector where you have huge potential, which is of water, hydropower. I think you only have tapped so far a very small percentage of what could be done in this field, and I think there are German investors who would be interested to come, but it means that some improvements are necessary also concerning the investment climate.
If Nepal is to restore its long-forgotten peaceful image and progressive economy, I mean, how will that happen? Where is that magic key that will unlock the misery of Nepal?
I don't think there will be any shortcut or any magic which can bring that. For that, those who run the country have to have minimum honesty and efficiency and peace, of course. Unless you have this peace, nobody is going to come and invest here. Then you have to restore this power situation also, 12-hour power cut, no guarantee of investment, and a forced unionization, extortion. That's not going to, bring any hope about the economic recovery of the country at a time when, there is a global fear of recession.
In context of international monetary exchange, Nepal's currency is directly dependent on the Indian currency. Does that limit Nepal from participating actively in the international trade and open up its global economic opportunities?
On the contrary, the peg of the Nepali rupee to the Indian rupee is a source of stability and confidence for the Nepalese economy. India is the largest trading partner of Nepal. 60% of exports and imports are coming from India and going to India. The Indian economy is huge next to Nepal's. It is natural that it's a dominant trading partner for Nepal. So a stable relationship of the currency with the Indian currency is a good thing. The integration of Nepal with other countries than India, including with China, is somewhat constrained by geography and transportation costs, but this is something that cannot be changed.
If Nepal's banking sector has to actively or directly participate in the global banking sector, what kind of political environment should Nepal thrive for? Well,
I think the Nepalese banking sector has actually survived quite well, even during the conflict times. It has grown in the number of banks, in profitability, in importance in the economy in general. But of course, you're right. The sector is very much circumscribed by the capital controls that exist in Nepal. But as the global economic crisis has erupted, that has been a good thing. But over the longer run, Nepal's banking sector should, of course, be able to participate in the international financial marketplace. But for this to be successful, there are a number of requirements. It requires very strong supervision. That has also been shown by the global economic crisis. So the Nepal Rashtra Bank must increase its supervisory capacity. The second factor is that the financial sector in Nepal needs to consolidate. There are too many banks and too many small banks. Instead, we should have fewer banks and bigger banks that can compete with foreign banks when they come to Nepal in next year under the WTO rules, when the banking sector will be open to foreign competition here.
Industry, communications, transportations, and the regular works of Nepal are continually disrupted because of the power cut and oil crisis. The Nepal Oil Corporation is normally in debt to pay back to the Indian Oil Corporation. How can Nepal figure out a way to pay back the debt to Indian Oil Corporation and to deal with the flux in international oil pricing?
Well, at the moment, Nepal Oil Corporation is profitable thanks to the decline in international fuel prices. So these profits are at the moment being used to repay not only the IOC but also the government and private sector institutions that have extended credit to the NOC during the time when fuel prices were very high. But we cannot rely on oil prices to remain as low as they are at the moment. When the global economy is recovering, they will surely rise. Already this is happening as economic news from China are getting better. In the longer run, a mechanism must be found to tie domestic fuel prices to movements in international oil markets. This can be achieved through an automatic pricing formula. The IMF has provided extensive technical assistance on this.
When we look at only 25 million population and Nepal having rich prospects in tourism, agriculture and hydropower, it's not very difficult for Nepal to revive its economy and progress in this sector. What are the prerequisites that Nepal need to achieve it?
There are several things that need to go right before Nepal can realize its economic potential. First of all is a normalization of politics. By this I mean that political conflicts are fought out in parliament and not on the streets. Roadblocks and industrial disputes, which are to a large extent driven by politics, have taken a huge toll on the economy. So bans, strikes, road blockages should stop. Labor disputes that are driven by politics and not by genuine questions about workers' issues should stop. At the same time, politicians need to pull together at least on a few issues. Getting roads built, getting power plants built should not be held hostage to political competition. A next point is that the state needs to set and enforce the rules of the economic game. For example, cartelization in many areas of the economy is widespread, for example transportation and retail trade. This implies that people pay too much for inferior goods and services. The state must make sure that competition prevails and cartels cannot be established. A third point is that the government bureaucracy must become more efficient and governance must improve. Every year the budget plans significant investments, and every year the budget is not executed fully. This year, large amounts of resources have been provided to the state by the outstanding performance of the revenue services, but these resources are not being used. So the bureaucracy must be made to work better and more efficiently. There are many reasons for the current weaknesses. One is, for example, the frequent rotation of staff. Another is the pervasive political interference. And the third, of course, is corruption. A fourth point that I would like to mention, and which is related, is public investment. The Nepalese economy needs to have more public investment in basic infrastructure. We all experience daily the power shortages. For private persons this is an inconvenience, but for industries this is life-threatening. We cannot wait, the Nepalese economy cannot wait for 10 years until a new hydroelectric power plant may be built. We need some quick fixes. Another area is transportation. There are too few roads, both national highways and feeder roads. Travel times are too long. This forecloses economic opportunities and leaves people poor. One of the best ways to combat poverty is connecting people and markets, and this is done through roads.
So you have served as the Minister of Finance. You have also served as the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Why is it that Nepalese politicians enjoy or are fully consumed with the culture of politics, conspiracy, deceit, and conflict? Why is it that they do not focus on people's simple need of education and economy?
There are times, I question myself, individually you talk to Nepal's politicians. They are intelligent, they mean well, they convey their impressions well, but collectively their expression of their desire and the result of their conduct has given the impression that Nepal is unable to govern herself, whether it's the monarchy, now multi-party democracy, republic. The basic culture of seizing the opportunity, getting hold, making good use of the opportunity and deliver the result. In a sense, I think our growing sense of dependence, kind of lack of self-confidence, and frankly speaking, I don't want to cast any blame on anyone, any party or any group. I want to maintain equal distance with all. But Nepal has been singularly unfortunate in the quality of leadership. The leaders that are on the horizon today have yet to prove that they are capable of people's confidence.
For Nepal to move ahead, the politicians and the citizens have to focus on economy and trade. But what is it that Nepal lacks that does not allow the country to focus on economy and globalization?
As we have already earlier in our discussion touched upon, political instability, lack of public security, rule of law, and lack of basic infrastructure, all of these have an adverse effect on the economy. For Nepal, being now in the very crucial transitional phase, it is important to finalize the peace process and constitution drafting. And only then the economic progress really can take place.
Nepal, even till today, depends largely on the donors' money and foreign aid or foreign loans. What are the advantages and disadvantages that Nepal has in terms of attracting foreign investments?
Nepal has got huge potential, as I mentioned, to attract foreign investment, because it has got untapped potential, huge untapped potential, as I mentioned, for infrastructural sector, mainly in hydropower, tourism, service sector, agricultural sector, value-added items, herbs, fruits, floriculture, what not. But again, you need to have that conducive climate. You need to create that perception outside Nepal that it's a stable country. It has got a stable government. It has got peace. By our investments, whoever is investment, be it domestic, be it international, investment is safe. Policies, conducive policies are there in place, because those policies are important, particularly labor policies. Nobody is going to invest money in a place and buy trouble.
Nepal is still undergoing through a political turmoil, besides putting aside the 10-year-long conflict through the peace process.
Yes.
But we have seen that countries like Sri Lanka, where despite having conflict, they have done pretty well with foreign investments.
Yes.
How can Nepal invite and safeguard FDI, foreign direct investments?
The government has to give very clear signals, not only by words, by demonstrating that there is a stability in this country. There is no danger in this country. If that happens, I think investment should not be a problem. I know there are people who are ready to invest in this beautiful country, in many sectors. But government has to be progressive. Government has to make sure that whoever is investing, even domestic investments are not also happening to the desired extent. I am not saying nothing is happening. Definitely something is happening, but not to the desired extent. So we need to see there is a catalysis. Some catalytic agent is working in a very positive way, and government could be that catalytic agent. Government should allow private sector to invest. Government should invite foreign direct investment into this country by resolving certain ticklish issues, like for a power sector, as for example. There are a lot of social issues which an investor will not be able to resolve. It is for the government to resolve those issues in a very comprehensive manner, so that the investment can come, income is generated, additional employment opportunities are generated, royalty could be agreed upon, all those issues. If 2 or 3 projects can happen in a seamless manner, I think there will be no dearth of investments. But government needs to prove that yes, it is solidly behind the investments, it really wants economic development. That has to be demonstrated. Once that is demonstrated, I don't think there is any problem of foreign direct investment here or domestic investment here. Because we all know that capital flights are happening. Even it is not unknown to the government. Those capital flights will be stopped. That's my feeling.
The remittance that the Nepali workers bring from Malaysia is very huge. It's 11% of the total budget.
Yeah.
And most of the amount that they bring goes to the rural parts of Nepal, because that's where they come from. Has our government ever acknowledged this contribution?
I've been here 3 years, Santoksha, but I'm not sure whether the government has really acknowledged that, because we have not seen tangibly. But I think I'm sure they are aware of it, But it's rather strange, Sometimes when the government wanted to consult the international community, it always the donor countries and the two the big neighbors, and we will occasionally we'll call, but most of the time we are left out. So it's very strange, so there's a tendency, but we have raised this issue with the Chief of Protocol, but let's hope, so because I think Malaysia too is a very important country among the developing world. So in fact, we are in the forefront of the developing world, and we have highlighted many international issues that affect the developing world. So I hope, that we will also be included.
Korea and Nepal have something in common in terms of geographical location. Korea is situated among some power nations such as China, Japan, and Russia. But the way Korea has maintained its sovereignty and economy is pretty amazing. How can Nepal learn from Korea's examples in terms of positioning itself in between China and India?
Until pretty recently, there was animosity between Korea on one side, South Korea on one side, and China and Russia on the other side. But now we have overcome all these things, and Korea is on good terms with both China and Russia, and that is important. For Nepal, I would say instead of looking at India and China as threats, or how should I put it,
big
elephants, you had better see it as your own market. So my advice would be try to make Nepal relevant both to India and China. And that is the way for Nepal to go.
We like to thank you for that, but it also seems that Nepal has become more dependent on the donors' aid in terms of developing the country. On the other side, can we also look at inviting Korean investors to invest in the business sector of Nepal so that we see a rise in the economic growth as well?
Actually, several Korean businessmen are knocking at the door of this country. So on the longer term, I am optimistic. But on a short term, the problem is when there is negotiations between your government side and the Korean businessmen, there is a change of government, and everything has to start from scratch. And when these Korean businessmen lose time this way for 1 year, 2 years, they lose patience and they go to another country. That is the problem. But on the longer term, once you have a stable government, and if the government goes on for the longer term, and if the businessmen can talk to the same people, then definitely we will have investment very soon.
Nepal and the US recently signed the TYA agreement, Trade and Investment Framework Agreement. What can Nepal expect from this?
What I hope we'll see coming from this is a real surge in the economic partnerships, the commercial partnerships between our two countries. It's not going to happen overnight. But the TIFA itself provides, as it says, it's a framework agreement. It provides that the basis for us to engage with each other, a mechanism for us to resolve issues of concern, to talk about how we build both a trade and investment relationship. And I think that this is critically important to the future of Nepal. We've got to build that economy. We've got to create opportunities for the youth. We have to build for the future, and I'd like to see us do that, and I believe the time is right. I think that many people, when they look at Nepal, still think of it as they did 10 years ago. They still think of the country in insurgency and the Maoists with kukris in their teeth and blood being spilled. That's not the Nepal of today. The narrative has changed. There are challenges ahead, yes, but there is potential for growth. There are American companies who are very quietly doing business here already and who are doing well, who are making money. There are other people, Nepali companies, that are doing well, that are making money. There are opportunities for growth. You are positioned between two of the largest economies in the world, fastest growing economies in the world. India and China. I've recently traveled to New Delhi, and I talked to American businesses with the American Chamber of Commerce. And I'm very pleased because later this month, we've got a good trade delegation coming up from the American Chamber in New Delhi. And I want them to see Nepal with their own eyes. I would want them to not listen to what the media has to say, with all due respect. I want them to see it for themselves. I think that this is a formula for seeing Nepal also do well and to consolidate the democratic gains that you are going to make by having a prosperous economy that is the framework, or that provides the undergrid for all of this.
Thank you for being with us. We'll be back next week at the same time with another special episode. Till then, good luck and goodbye.